And I'm going to go with Tunsil here. They're going to go with Tunsil out of Ole Miss. He's arguably the best tackle in this draft, along with Stanley from Notre Dame. But I think Tunsil has a lot more potential. It would be great to snatch him just because he's a left tackle. It's one of the biggest holes the Ravens have on that roster. And again, he's one of the best blockers in this class, no question about it, if not the best by a mile. So for me, Tunsil's going to the Ravens. Tom?
I agree. Tunsil is the best choice, especially when you're protecting. Thank you. You're a franchise quarterback. Joe Flacco had a lot of years left in him. Strong arm. He's got offensive weapon. He does need a running back behind him. But I'm also looking at this. If I'm looking at this correctly, there is actually a projected trade to the Titans that might happen between the Ravens and the Titans. So they may be bumped up while the Ravens get kicked back to number 15, which will be interesting. Now, if that were to happen, I could still see them going for an offensive tackle like Jack Conklin or Taylor Decker. But a wide receiver from TCU has sprung my interest. Josh Doctson. He might actually be a valuable asset for the Baltimore Ravens if they're looking for a wide receiver. But in any case, I'm going to say that if it's not a projected trade, I'm going to go Laramie Tunsil as well.
I'm going to skip down a couple more picks here. I'm going to go to 11 with Chicago. The Bears are a team that they're pretty much in, I think, the limbo of the NFL. They're not a team that's going to make the playoffs or do anything in the playoffs, but they're not a team that's a top 10 pick necessarily. I don't think they're that bad, but I do think that there is a lot of potential there, assuming, and we've been saying this for the last 4 or 5 years since Cutler's been there, there's always a lot of potential. I think for Chicago, they're in need of a running back. I think Jeremy Langford's a good running back, but I don't think that he has the explosiveness of this running back that we're going to take here. I'm going with Ezekiel Elliott, Ohio State. You saw him in the national championship game a couple years ago. He is explosive as any college football player in the country. I just think his breakaway speed is in pads, not just the 40 time, but in pads, is something that unique that you do not see very often. And I think for Jay Cutler to succeed in this offense, he's going to have help from the running back position. And they've already drafted a wide receiver last year, did get hurt, so they have depth there. So getting that X factor running back that can explode out of the backfield like Elliott is huge. So that's my pick for Chicago at 11.
I agree. Ezekiel Elliott would be the perfect fit for the Chicago Bears, and he has actually expressed that Chicago Bears are in love with him. And I believe that this is a good choice because outdoor Matt Forte went to the New York Jets after playing 8 seasons with Chicago Bears. And it looked like they knew it was about time for them to give him up because he's at 30. He's pretty much almost past his peak, if not going downhill. Last attempts he had was 218. He was averaging only 4.1 yards per game, and he only had 4 touchdowns. So it seemed like he was declining a little bit, still had some good spurts, but Ezekiel Elliott could fill that hole. He could be the Eddie Lacy for the Chicago Bears, which would be interesting when they play because Eddie Lacy has lost 15 pounds. So I'm saying Ezekiel Elliott is a good matchup for the Chicago Bears.
Okay. I'm going to drop all the way to 18 now. I'm going to go to the Indianapolis Colts here. This pick is a player who has a lot of value. I think he could have been a top 10 pick had he not had the off-the-field issues. And that's Noah Spence from Eastern Kentucky. The name sounds familiar for most people just because he was at Ohio State his first couple years. Then his off-the-field issues ended up having him exit the football program and having to restart his football career at Eastern Kentucky. The talent's available. The talent is a top 10 talent, no question. I think it would imagine with him and Joey Bosa on that line, that would have been really, really impressive. And Ohio State would have been an even more dominating team. But again, life goes in certain ways, and Spence is at Eastern Kentucky. His potential is absolutely fantastic, and for Indianapolis, they need a lot of help at outside linebacker. They have a veteran core there, but I feel like it's just on the back end of their careers. And Spence can play either defensive end or outside linebacker, so it's perfect for that offense, or for that defensive scheme that Indianapolis runs. So for me, going with Noah Spence at 18. Tom?
Yes. What I'm looking at right now is Ryan Kelly, the center from Alabama. His frame, 6'4", weight 311, is pretty good for his center. He's a very gritty player and loves to fight. His toughness to scrap is pretty much the best against nose guards. What he lacks is just the beefy frame of a center. So if he adds some weight, I think Andrew Luck will be glad to have him as a center and him protecting him. So I'm going to actually go Ryan Kelly for center.
The next pick is the Bills at 19. There's a lot of picks you can go with, particularly on the defensive end, to be honest. I think that for the Bills, the linebacking core is very important in the first round. I think that their ability to play, their linebacking ability wasn't that good last season. You have a player available in Reggie Ragland from Alabama who is absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of upside there. So for me, there's a lot of other picks you can go with. You can go with Darren Lee as well. You can go with Jaron Reed, defensive tackle. But if I'm going to go anything, if I'm going to be for sure, I'd go with Ragland from Alabama. Tom?
Ragland does look like a pretty good choice. I've got three other people that might be good. Defensive tackle Robert, and I didn't even try his
MDG?
last name. Yeah, thank you. Another defensive end, Kevin Dodd, and another defensive end, Shaq Lawson. If Shaq Lawson actually drops down, I would think that he would be a pretty good choice for the Buffalo Bills. But as you said, and you know your Buffalo Bills the best, an inside linebacker from Alabama should be a good fit for the Buffalo Bills. Reggie Ragland.
22 is the Houston Texans. They had a big signing, of course, in Brock Osweiler in the offseason. And they obviously have one of the best young wide receivers in football right now. So adding another receiver to that core would be pretty impressive. In this mock draft, I do see Houston taking Will Fuller out of Notre Dame. It's impressive because I think there's so much potential with Fuller. He's a big guy, 6'5", about 200 pounds, so he can go up there and get the football that Brock Osweiler throws. And I think the duo between him and Hopkins on the outside would be one of the scariest in football. You can also pick Corey Coleman from Baylor, but I think Fuller's more of a possession receiver. He's a guy that will get up there. Coleman played in that Baylor offense where they just, again, chucked it day in and day out. So for me, I'm going to go, if I'm going to flip a coin between Coleman and Fuller for the first wide receiver going off the board here, it'd be Fuller from Notre Dame. Tom?
I'm going to agree with you on that because as I'm looking at Corey Coleman's stats, when it came down to big games like Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Iowa State, his receptions are, for Oklahoma, he only had 3 receptions for 51 yards. It's not bad, not good. Oklahoma State, he had only 5 receptions for 77 yards. Once again, it's decent, but not that great. And then looking at West Virginia, that's where he was explosive. West Virginia, they had a blowout 62-38 win, 10 receptions, 199 yards, 3 touchdowns. Awesome. It seems like, though, in big games, he needs to find a route. He's an inside runner, it looks like, because his height's 5'11", he only weighs 190, so he's a slot receiver. Corey Coleman is a decent draft pick if they were going slot, but for Houston Texans, who'd you pick again?
I went with, sorry, let me go back up here. I went with Will Fuller from Notre Dame.
Will Fuller, yes. I watched a couple of Notre Dame games because my friend, he is a huge Notre Dame fan, and I'm going to go with you and go him.
Sounds good. 27, your Packers, Tom. They're a team that lost B.J. Raji, unexpected retirement. So that's not necessarily a need, but hey, I mean, filling that hole in the first round would be great, and there's a lot of potential there. Assuming this player drops all the way down, mainly because of his off-the-field issues, that's one of the reasons why he's dropped. I think before that, he was a top 10 pick, no question. But because of those off-the-field issues, it looks like he's going to drop down all the way here. Robert Mdici from Ole Miss is a player that has just natural ability, and it made Ole Miss one of the powers in the SEC in the last couple of years, has made them into one of the top 15 programs in the country. But again, his off-the-field issues have been a little bit of an issue. Either that or Vernon Butler. If you're going to go with a safer pick, I'd go Butler, but if you're going to go with upside and has the potential, assuming he gets his stuff together, Robert Mdici for the Packers would be such a steal at that pick. You can also go Bullard, D-tackle, or trade down for the Packers. So just because they can get more picks in the second round. But that's just my pick. Tom, what do you think on your Packers?
My Packers need defense. It's always come down to that. Our offense has been sound. Aaron Rodgers can throw to any wide receiver and make him a stud. Jordy Nelson is coming back, which is excellent. Our tight ends are decent. It's just our defense. Clay Matthews moved to inside linebacker and has been phenomenal last season. So I think the person to join him, and if he drops this far, Reggie Ragland. I know we talked about him. If he drops slow, he is pretty much an old school take-on middle linebacker who plays the game like Nick Saban likes. He pretty much stepped into a hole that was lead blocking, and he constricted his gap when it came to running backs trying to run up the gut. He's an essential player that I believe the Green Bay Packers will need, especially up the middle. I'm sad. I do have my B.J. Raji jersey sitting in the closet collecting dust now until the NFL season starts. But I think that our front defensive ends and defensive tackles are star-studded cast, and we just need help with linebackers. So I'm going to go Reggie Ragland if he drops that far.
The last pick of the first round is 31 of the Broncos. Again, the Patriots don't have a pick this year in the first round. Assuming that this pick drops all the way down, because I do think that at least 4 QBs are going to be drafted in the first round. Again, the top 2 will be the top 2 overall picks, Goff and Wentz. I do think there's going to be a reach for quarterbacks like Hackenberg or Connor Cook, but this quarterback in particular is definitely one that I feel the Broncos should take, and that's Paxton Lynch out of Memphis. Again, he's a big QB, 6'5", about 240, same as Wentz. Didn't play in a conference that was that talented, to be honest, but he brought Memphis into the national spotlight, I think getting as high as 13 in the country at one point. And honestly, at the end of the day, they cannot just go with Mark Sanchez as their starting QB for this beginning of the season. They're going to have to have some competition there, and I think Paxton Lynch is good. I think that he can definitely be the starting QB at Denver at some point during his rookie year, just because they have a world-class defense, and I think that defense will carry them far in the playoffs. It's just a matter of Paxton Lynch adapting to an offense in Denver like it is, again, being more of a game manager, not necessarily having to be the man to carry that team, as you saw with Peyton Manning last season. So for me, if Paxton Lynch is available, assuming he drops as far in the end of the first round, that's who I would go with. Tom?
Paxton Lynch is mainly raw talent, and that's what I see from the Memphis quarterback. He's big in stature. He looks like the complete QB, but I don't see it. Yes, if there's going to be competition, you'll need it definitely, because Mark Sanchez is Mr. Butt Fumble. I can't look at him any other way. I'm sorry. Paxton Lynch, good luck with that. Facing off against he was a decent Mark Sanchez was a decent QB his first 2 years, and then he went downhill. If Paxton Lynch goes and is his backup,